showed me that
Okay, good afternoon, Earth. This is Adam Sturch broadcasting from the Mushroom Mansion, Taos, New Mexico, working on oil painting nurture. Alright, yesterday worked on these scenes here and these scenes here. And today I'm going to do the sun, start developing some layers on it so it starts getting some light absorption and some glow after I give it a pure white aura. And let that dry solid. We'll do a glaze over all of it again to make it more yellow and glowing. And then we're going to do the couple watching the sunset, the little girl's razor blade over here, and I think that's all the colors I've mixed up for the moment. So I'm going to zoom in on the first scene.
You impose on that book your acculturation.
Sunset, the sun, and the sunset watchers.
Standing in the wrong place. So I went to India hoping I could find a map reader.
That's sufficient. Okay, we're good.
Somebody who could decipher the maps for me. And whom I was graced to meet was Negroli Baba. And after he had taken 1,200 micrograms of acid and nothing had happened, because when you're in Detroit, you don't have to take a bus to Detroit. I realized that what he had done was just shown me that he had freed me from a method, and he had showed me that it was possible for a human being to simultaneously be aware on all the planes of consciousness at once. Because wherever I went, he was always there. If I got high, he was high. If I was down, he was down. And yet he wouldn't ever allow me to grab hold of him with my consciousness. Like at one point I started to think, I've got a really cool guru. He knows everything, he's a miracle Baba. Great. So a friend of mine arrived from Canada who was a professor. And I said, come see my guru. Feeling my guru would snow him. So he came in, and my guru, who knew everything, said to him, hello, you're from the United States. The guy said, no, Maharaji, I'm from Canada. Oh, and you have 3 brothers? No, Maharaji, I'm an only child. And it went on like this until I was so mortified. And as the guy left the temple, he said, very nice guru you've got there, you know, and I went back steaming, and Maharaji was laughing. So he played with my mind. He played with my mind. It's delicious to find a playmate to play with your mind. Really, that's the gift of Guru. That's the gift of wise friend. You know, my particular path has been one that I have been very reticent to speak about in the West, my spiritual path. And it's the path of what's called Guru Kripa, or grace of the Guru. And it just doesn't sell in the West, for a lot of reasons. First of all, the West is suspicious of gurus, and rightly so. But also, we aren't comfortable about having spirit in human form. That's a complicated one for us. And the other thing that why I didn't want to tell people, even if they got through all of that, and had sympathetic joy for me, they would also, at some level, want the same thing. And my guru had left his body, and what could I offer? I had nobody to recommend. I mean, there were a lot of great ones around that other people said were, but I myself had not had an experience that would lead me to send them to another person. So I didn't want to hurt people, but then an interesting sequence has happened. So I just held on to my stories, and then in 1978 we collected lots of stories and published this book, Miracle of Love, which is 1,000 stories about Neem Curly Bob, which don't create a human being at all, by the way. It's like pointless paintings or something. And people read that book, and they started to write letters to me with the pictures and the stories, and saying, who is that guy? I've read these stories, and somehow I've opened myself, and he's within me. He's like around me all the time. Is this good? And I said, well, as far as I can see from listening to people who are in the same situation as you, they talk to me about their relationship with him the same way as I feel in my relationship with him. Therefore, I must assume they are all my guru brothers or sisters, and that they are as connected with him as I am, since he's dead anyway. So I began to see that this whole business of, do you have a guru, do you have a teacher in flesh, was, it was absolutely delicious and wonderful and a great high, but it was not necessary. In India they say God, Guru, and Self are one and the same. And it certainly seems to turn out to be that case. And some people get it through a devotional path to another form, Hanuman or Ram or Maharaji or whatever form, Christ, Jesus, rather. And some relate through the formless. I watched in devotional yoga, these stages of devotional yoga, where you start out with a relational love, like you love Jesus, or you love Mary, or you love Krishna, or Durga, or whoever, Hanuman. You love them in a relational way, and then, especially when you do things like chanting or all-night singing or something like that, and just keep going in and allow yourself to go into these really trance states. You come into these other planes of consciousness where you're in a different relationship to that being, where you and the beloved are just hanging out together. You're not any longer trying to get to the beloved. And then there is a period of just the most exquisite foreplay, where you're hanging out with God in whatever form your root is. And for a real bhakti, they want to continue the foreplay and they don't want the orgasm. They don't want the merging back into, they want to stay separate so they can enjoy loving the beloved. And actually, and there's one more stage, and that's where you merge with the beloved. And then you are the creation. You are what you are. You just are. What fascinates me is that we are all these levels at once. What fascinates me is with what short shrift I dealt with myself in the old days. I mean, when I do this old exercise I've done many times, where you put a tuner, a control knob next to your eye, and you tune it at level 1, and you look up here and you see a 65-year-old, paunchy, bald, handsome gentleman. Okay? And then you flip at one dial, and you see me as teacher, as spiritual seeker, as da-da-da. You see me as Caucasian, you see me as on and on. All my psychosocial identities. That's who you see. On Channel 2, that's as the world turns. That's where our personalities hang out. That's where we think our storylines are real. Then you go to Channel 3, where we're all bigger than life. It's the astral plane. And we all have our archetypal identities. And I'm an Aries, and you know what that means. And then we go one more channel, and when we look into the eyes of another person whom we just saw as their physical body, their psychosocial identity, their astral identity, you look in their eyes and you see from behind all that another being looking out at you. Are you in there? I'm in here. How did you get into that one? It's as if you see, it's as if you have brought your awareness back into your soul identity, and what you see when you look out are other soul identities. And then if you flip the dial once more, you see that those souls are all like jivatmans. They're all little parts of one thing. They're like holography. And you realize that it's looking at itself, looking at itself, looking at itself. There's only one of us here in drag. Now it's interesting, you and I, from my point of view, exist as that one awareness. We also exist as souls who are aware of our predicament as souls. And we also exist as incarnates, as egos. And I'm using the word ego now to include your body and your personality and all the psychophysical shtick of channels 1 and 2. So you and I got born, which was in itself an interesting trip. But then, not to get delayed there, you and I went into training. And we went into basically somebody training. See, we went into training about how to be somebody. Now, you were trained by the best kind of people because they all thought they were somebody. Your mother and father both thought they were real. And therefore they thought their child was real. So you're surrounded by a consciousness in which your separateness is what's real. And you go into separate training. You're somebody. And you learn how to be somebody and get what you think you need. Because at first you think it's all one thing, and then slowly you see it doesn't always happen. Most people, when that happens, they get so busy. The somebodyness is like computer software for functioning on this plane, on this loca. It's our thinking minds. Once we are somebody, meaning we have a conceptual map of reality that includes who we think we are and who we think everybody else is. So we know a tree is a tree and a rose is a rose. Then we go into somebody's special training. See? Didn't you? Didn't you? Then we get trained how to be somebody special. I was very special. Everybody was special. And then for us, certainly us who are gathered in this room, something happened. It may have been lurking all through your life, or it may have just happened. But at one moment, or at some point, you awakened. and you can put those in many terms. You realize you've been had. You realize you had been trapped in somebody-ness. Just in the same way as Gurdjieff talks about landing in prison. And he said, if you would escape from prison, the first thing you must realize is you're in prison. If you think you're free, no escape is possible. Far out image. So you awaken. And for me, that's what happened in 1961 with the mushrooms. And from then on, the game changes. Because at that point, your awareness has experience from other, what are now called non-ordinary states of consciousness. You have experienced reality from those planes, and you have known experientially that it's equally as valid as the plane you thought was real. This too weird? Are you here? Okay. When I first awakened, the feelings I had were, I'm home. This is so familiar. Where have I been all this time? How have I cut myself off from this thing? I've been starving to death, and here I was in an ocean of plenty.
Alright, so that gets those figures blocked in, and
then slowly
a nice bright aura around the sun.
But I have the memory of that.
Now I'm going to slide
and
over
that memory
here
kept compelling me forward
to the girl with the razor blade.
Get into that state and stabilize it.
And do some coloration
So
on that real
showed
quick.
me that was possible. And what I have
And
done
then if
since
there's a
that
little bit of
which
time
is
left,
the last 23
so I
years,
think I'll just do one session right now.
is to
I'll do the bows on the
do
kite.
the practices and live my life in
Alright.
such a way as to optimize my stabilizing myself in an awakened state. Because as far as I can understand, that is the most compassionate thing that I can do. Now that has nothing to do with whether I'm active or not. It's how I'm active. It's how I'm active. Because what I have seen to my own horror is a lot of my best intentions as an ego to relieve the suffering of others has ended up increasing the sum total of suffering in the world. Either because I suffered more than they did in trying to, whatever. And I realized out of all that, that if I cared about the world, the earth, the other people, and I saw that I was the instrument, just like you are, I was the basic instrument through which social change would occur. Because as you see the web of interconnected information and consciousness, you see that as each individual in the system changes, the whole system changes. So I saw that I had to work on myself as a way of extricating my awareness from the exclusive identification with my ego structures, with my map of reality, with my identification with my desires, with my needs, with my wants. Not stopping any of that or trying to stop it or denying its existence. This is not Meshuggah stuff. This is the ability to extricate yourself from exclusive identity with those things. You don't push them away, because then you just end up a horny celibate. You can't do that. It's a process in which you, best characterized for me by Mahatma Gandhi. His autobiography were called Experiments with Truth. And when he was on a train and it was leaving the station, and a reporter rushed up and said, Babaji, Mahatmaji, give me a message to take back to the people in the village. And Gandhi scribbled on a piece of paper and handed it out the window, and it said, "My life is my message." I assume you're saying the same thing. I would like to be. I would like to have the integrity that everything I know to be true inside is manifested at all the levels outward. I'm not. But I see that until I am, every message I send is a mixed message. Every message I send is not only a message of love, but it's a message of fear. It's interesting, I work a lot with people that are dying. So I'm often with people as they approach dying. And often when I walk into the room of somebody that is that's suffering immensely, that has, say, cancer or AIDS or Lou Gehrig disease or whatever, ALS. My first reactions are often reactions in which my empathy for that person and the predicament they find themselves in is so great that I feel my heart being ripped apart by the pain of their situation. What I've learned to do is sit with that, not deny it, not try to push it away, but just sit with it until I quiet down and I find an inner center in which I then can rest in my own soul awareness, and I look out and I see a fellow soul who is in a different incarnation than I am. And it's an incarnation in which this person is going through this physical condition. But the soul is not going through the condition, the ego is. So when you meet a fellow soul, so when I go into the room, my job isn't to say to the person who's busy suffering and in pain, say, "Hey, that's just your ego, come on up and be with your soul." Because I have no moral right to decide about another person's karma. They all have their own work to do. What I can do with my consciousness is create an environment where another person could come out and play if they chose. But if they didn't, blessings. You're impeccable in the role you're playing on the ego psychophysical plane. But you're also present on another plane. And I think if I could get the essence of what I have figured out in the simplest early stages of it is that you and I should be living on two planes of consciousness simultaneously. Just two. I don't ask for the whole shtick. Just two. And you say, which two? And I'd say any two. Because the minute you can, whether you have lucid dreams, that's one way of doing it. One way you admit you are in a different reality and you go from reality to reality. Because what that does is it changes the meaning of any single reality. I just finished a book called Aging Lightly, a spiritual paradigm for conscious aging. Because I'm 65 and the boomers are turning 50. It's a great market. Okay?
Don't know if I can do three
And
more
I
bows
looked, you know what
in
happened
4
to
more
me?
minutes. Let's see.
I was on a train going from Westport to New York City, and it was a late evening train. It was in autumn, and I had been with my friend Judith Stanton. We had been out looking at the leaves and their height and of beauty. And now I was in this dimly lit coach in the evening, sort of glowing from the day. And the station was closed, so you bought your ticket on the train, and the conductor came along the aisle and he said, "Tickets, please." And I said, "I'd like to buy one from you." And he said, "What kind do you want?" And I said, "Do I have a choice?" And he said, "Regular or senior?" What went on in my mind at that moment will pass for the second. But what I said to him was, "Senior?" But I said it the same way as when I was 18 years old, I went into a bar to order a beer in New York State. You know, beer? Like, "Would you serve me a beer?" And he gave me the ticket. I said, "How much is this?" He said, $4.50. And I said, "How much would a regular one be?" He said, $7. And I was very pleased with that. It's not half bad. I mean, it's half price. So he gave me the ticket. He didn't ask for any identification. So then I held this ticket, and I realized that this was going to cost me more than $2.50, you know. Because here I had accepted a ticket defined, and it said on it, "Senior." And I never thought of myself being a senior citizen. How absurd. And it felt weird. And instead of pushing away the weird feeling like I did when I was 60, see,
Hey, all
when I
right,
was
that leaves us
60,
2
I really
minutes.
tried to milk it. I thought, I've been
Zoom
treating
in on the razor
birthdays like
blade
nothing.
there.
I'll really make something out of this birthday, because in India,
So that gets
60
those colors
is the
blocked
year
in.
when you're going into the 4th stage of life, becoming
And
sannyas,
the kite
giving up
is
everything.
starting to have a little bit of personality now.
So I had 3 birthday parties.
But I think that's it for the
I
moment.
was going to give up everything. I was going to go out flying, and I started to plan how to gear it down.
So
everything,
that's
and,
Adam Sturch broadcasting
turn
from the
my
Mushroom
life
Mansion,
around
Taos, New
since-
Mexico,
And after
working on
about
oil
6
painting
months, I didn't
nurture.
feel a thing. I was busier than ever,
Have a good
and I
day,
found
Earth.
myself putting it off. So I thought, the hell with it. I just won't do that trip. I'll just go on being